The story of Keiko the whale is a heart-wrenching tale of captivity, redemption, and the power of human compassion. It is a journey that spans several decades and involves not just a whale, but a community of people who dedicated their lives to ensuring Keiko's freedom. Keiko's story is deeply intertwined with the popular 1993 film Free Willy, which brought global attention to the plight of captive orcas and inspired a movement to free animals from captivity. While the story of Keiko is one of hope, it also shines a light on the darker realities of captivity and the responsibility humans have toward the creatures they hold. The beginning of Keiko's life. Keiko, whose name means lucky one in Japanese, was born in the wild off the coast of Iceland in the late 1970s. Orcas, or killer whales, are known for their intelligence, social structure, and complex behaviors. Keiko was a member of a family of wild orcas that traveled in pods, communicating through clicks and calls as they hunted, socialized, and protected one another in the vast expanse of the ocean. But Keiko's life would take a tragic turn when, at just 2 years old, he was captured from the wild and sold to the entertainment industry. In 1979, Keiko was captured by fishermen who used a method called drive fishing to herd and trap orcas into nets. After being separated from his family, Keiko was transported to a holding pen in a small bay in Iceland, where he was eventually sold to a company that specialized in providing animals for marine parks. Keiko's capture marked the beginning of his long and painful journey, one that would take him far from his natural home and into a life of captivity. For the next several years, Keiko was shipped from one marine park to another. He was first sent to a facility in the United States where he lived in a small concrete tank that was nothing like the vast ocean he was born into. It was here that Keiko's troubles began. The tank was far too small for an animal that would grow to over 20 feet long and weigh several tons. The water was cold, often unclean, and there was no social interaction with other orcas, just humans who provided food and occasional entertainment. Life in captivity. Keiko's life in captivity was one of confinement and loneliness. He was subjected to a life of entertainment, performing tricks for large crowds at marine parks. Orcas are highly intelligent animals, and Keiko's ability to learn tricks was remarkable. But despite his impressive performance, he was not thriving. His emotional and physical well-being deteriorated as he spent years in a small tank, away from his natural pod and the open ocean. At the age of 10, Keiko was moved to the Ocean World Marine Park in Mexico, where he would spend the next several years. While the conditions were somewhat better than his earlier living arrangements, it was still far from ideal for such a large, intelligent animal. Keiko's emotional and psychological health suffered further as he was isolated from other orcas and confined to a tank that was still too small for him to move around freely. Keiko's situation worsened when it was discovered that he had developed health problems. He had trouble swimming properly, and he exhibited behaviors that suggested stress and frustration. His only company was humans, who would feed him and occasionally interact with him, but orcas are social animals, and Keiko had none of the social interaction that is critical to their well-being. Over time, Keiko's health continued to decline, and many people began to realize that his captivity was no longer sustainable. The campaign to free Keiko. In response to the public's growing concern about Keiko's plight, a movement began to form around the idea of releasing him back into the wild. The Free Willy Keiko Foundation, founded in 1995, became the driving force behind the efforts to rehabilitate Keiko and return him to his natural habitat. The foundation, supported by animal rights activists, marine biologists, and environmental groups, sought to raise awareness about the cruelty of keeping orcas in captivity and to provide Keiko with a chance to return to the wild. One of the first challenges was determining whether it was even possible to release a captive orca back into the wild. Keiko had spent many years in captivity, and he had become highly dependent on humans for food. He was not accustomed to hunting or interacting with other orcas. His health had deteriorated, and his survival in the wild was uncertain. Many marine experts questioned whether it was too late for Keiko to ever reintegrate into the wild, but the team behind the Free Willy campaign was determined to give him the best chance. In 1996, Keiko was transferred from Mexico to a facility in Oregon, where his rehabilitation began. This facility, known as the Oregon Coast Aquarium, was chosen for its more natural, larger tanks and its proximity to the ocean. The goal was to allow Keiko to regain his strength, relearn basic survival skills, and slowly adapt to life outside of captivity. The foundation worked closely with marine biologists and veterinarians to develop a program that would ease Keiko back into the wild. At the Oregon Coast Aquarium, Keiko began his rehabilitation journey. He was introduced to the sounds and smells of the ocean, and he started to interact with other marine animals. The team worked tirelessly to help Keiko regain the instincts that he had lost during his years of captivity. They also began the difficult task of teaching Keiko how to hunt for his food, a skill he had never learned in captivity. The release of Keiko. After several years of rehabilitation, the decision was made to release Keiko into the wild. In 1998, he was transferred to a netted pen off the coast of Iceland, not far from where he had been captured almost 20 years earlier. This area was chosen because it was close to Keiko's natural habitat, and the hope was that he would be able to integrate into the wild population of orcas. The release was a carefully planned operation, with marine biologists and animal experts monitoring Keiko's progress closely. Keiko was fitted with a tracking device, and his movements were closely watched. The goal was not only to give him the chance to live freely, but also to ensure that he would be able to interact with other orcas and learn how to hunt for his food. In the wild, Keiko encountered several challenges. He struggled with hunting and did not initially connect with wild orcas, which made it difficult for him to adapt to the natural social structure of orca pods. Despite these challenges, Keiko remained in the waters off the coast of Iceland for several months, exploring the open sea and interacting with the local marine life. His release marked a significant milestone in the battle against the captivity of orcas, though the ultimate outcome of Keiko's journey would remain uncertain. Keiko's final years and legacy. In 2002, after spending several years in the wild, Keiko's health began to decline. He had suffered from a series of health complications, including pneumonia, and it became clear that he was not thriving in the wild as had been hoped. Keiko was found swimming near the coast of Norway, far from the orcas he had been attempting to connect with. Unfortunately, the rehabilitation efforts could not fully restore his health, and Keiko passed away in December 2003 at the age of 27. Keiko's death was a bittersweet moment for those who had worked tirelessly to rehabilitate him. While his release into the wild had not resulted in the full integration into a wild pod, his story had a profound impact on the world. Keiko's journey highlighted the complex nature of animal rehabilitation and the ethical dilemmas surrounding the captivity of wild animals. His release raised awareness about the challenges of freeing animals from captivity and the importance of providing them with the proper care and conditions to live as they would in the wild. Keiko's legacy lives on through the continued efforts of the Free Willy Keiko Foundation, which continues to advocate for the rights of captive animals and to promote the idea that animals should live in environments that allow them to express their natural behaviors. Keiko's story also contributed to a broader movement toward whale and dolphin conservation and has led to changes in the way some marine parks operate, with an increasing recognition of the need to provide animals with more space and more natural environments.